Welcome back to my channel. You already know it's your boyhood digital, the rock reactor, back with another video. Yes, sir. Before I proceed, let me know where you tapping in from. Let me know what country, what city, what mountain, what hill, what cave, what island, what planet, what universe. Let me know where you at. Represent your hood. Yes, sir. A world of love to my Ukraine. An abundance of peace for my Ukraine. As I stand with God, I stand with Ukraine. Yes, sir. So now we go into the news. Things are not looking good for Putin. I see that the Trumpinator is joining in, and he is joining in with Ukraine, according to this, to strike deep inside Russia. Like I've always said, guys, let me know if this is fake news. Let me know if there's any truth to this, if there's any falseness to this, any false news, fake news, like my man Trump says. Fake news. If it's not fake news, let me know, or if it's somewhere in between. We're gonna get right to it, guys. And before we do, if you haven't already, let me please subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell, hit the like button. Any donations to my channel will be greatly appreciated. My PayPal account is on the description. Let's talk about it. Let's get right to it. This is Trump just lost. Putin just lost. U.S. joined Ukraine to strike deep inside Russia.
Alaska, had a good meeting. Then he went back and started sending drones into Kiev. I thought we had a good meeting.
Trump just dropped a nightmare news on Putin. You see, there's one thing Putin is afraid of. This war coming home to Russia and Russian elites finding out exactly how bad the army is doing on the front lines. Well, President Trump just made that a reality with his new announcement. US will now be helping Ukraine with missile strikes deep inside Russia. This is going to be a huge problem for the Russian oil industry, which is already struggling because of Ukrainian sanctions, aka Ukrainian drones. But you see, drones do some damage, but missiles, they wipe out everything in sight. Now, of course, Kremlin is not happy. So they're waking up Medvedev and getting him ready to send out an angry tweet. But outside of that, there's not much Russia can do except blackmail the world. So Putin is attacking Chernobyl. He's attacking nuclear facilities and warning the world, hey, I'm a crazy guy, don't mess with me. He knows war cannot be won on the battlefield, so he's doing what every desperate leader does, act crazy. Well, in this video, let's go over all of that. Starting, of course, with why.
See, this is what I'm saying, that Putin has no regards, has no regard for his citizens. He has no regard. I mean, doesn't he think that if the war goes deep inside Russia, doesn't he take into consideration all the casualties that would happen on his citizens, on his own people? So why is he doing this? For his own personal ego, to boost his own personal ego? I mean, I just don't get it, guys.
Did President Trump make this decision, and why did he make it now? For that, we have to go back just a few days, because he gave a speech yesterday, and it gives us a lot of clues. So let's listen in.
We were a little bit threatened by Russia recently, and I sent a submarine, nuclear submarine, the most lethal weapon ever made. I announced that, based on his mention of nuclear, and it was really a stupid person that works for him mentioned the word nuclear, I moved a submarine or two, I won't say about the two, over to the coast of Russia, just to be careful, because we can't let people throw around that word.
As some of you guys might have already guessed, that crazy person that President Trump is referring to is Dmitry Medvedev, former president of Russia and current head of Russian Security Council. Now, on top of this, he also has another honor in Russia. He is the biggest purchaser of Russian vodka. True story. Now, if Putin wants to survive this war, he may need to ban Medvedev from tweeting. Because once again, Dmitry Medvedev has responded to President Trump. And I don't think what he's saying is gonna help Russia at all. New episode of the series Nuclear Subs for posts on X. Trump once again brought up the subs he allegedly sent to the Russian shores, insisting that they are very well hidden. As the saying goes, it's hard to find a black cat in a dark room, especially if it's not there. Now, maybe the head of the Russian Security Council should not be making jokes about nuclear submarines, all the while a Russian submarine is leaking off the coast of Spain. We covered this just a day ago, and now that submarine is above water and looking for a tow to Kaliningrad so it can get repaired. Much like everything in Russia, the submarine is breaking down in front of everyone's eyes. Anyways, I digress. I don't think Medvedev's comment had anything to do with what President Trump did next, but it makes me happy knowing that Medvedev is likely very angry again. This was the big announcement that came out last night. US to provide Ukraine with intelligence for missiles to strike deep inside Russia. This is gonna be huge because, as you guys know, Ukrainian drones are already hitting Russian refineries, but missiles are about to change that game. Now, in a second, we'll go over the differences, but for now, let's quickly go over why President Trump did this. That's because, as I have already said, this is a huge news and it's the first time US is actually doing it. And in fact, it's not gonna be US alone. US officials are actually pushing other NATO countries to provide similar supports. Now, of course, US intelligence is best in the world, no matter what everyone says, but it's still a big message to Russia if all of NATO is helping out Ukraine. Now, another important thing to note here is the fact that this news is just coming a week after US unofficially announced that they're pulling out of negotiations with Russia. That's because Russia wasn't really negotiating. There was no progress or no agreements that were made from the Russian side. They weren't willing to accept anything except a complete surrender of Ukraine, or if they wanted to talk, they wanted Zelensky to go to Moscow. This was not negotiation.
So basically, the meeting that Trump had, according to Trump, the meeting that he had with Putin did absolutely nothing. And whatever they agreed upon, no matter how little it was, Putin never respected any agreement that he had with Trump. So this is why Trump, I believe, is going full speed ahead. And what I truly don't understand, and I keep saying the same thing, is all Putin has to do is just say, listen, that's it. I'm going to pull out of the war. Let's have peace. Let's leave this. Quit while I'm ahead. Because he sees that he has no wins. Something else is Putin is running out of allies. Where's Kim Jong-un, I think he had sent troops to Ukraine. What happened to that? If something did happen that I did not know about, please let me know. But I was under the impression that Russia had North Korea as an ally. He probably still does, but Kim Jong is being very quiet about this, very silent.
These were just delay tactics, and that's why US pulled out of the negotiation, and now President Trump is taking a different course of action. A course that's going to be very expensive for Putin and all the oligarchs that own oil refineries. This decision is also coming at a very bad time for the Russian army, because take a look at this chart. Last month was actually one of the worst months for Russia in terms of how much gains they made on the front lines. Now, of course, I do want to point out the slowdown doesn't mean the Russian army is stopped. They're still gaining ground, but it's not much. And it's even worse if you consider how much they're losing. Thousands and thousands of people every single day.
I don't want to say we're making money because I don't want to be making money on a war. It's too many people dying. They're losing 7,000 soldiers a week. A lot of them are Russian soldiers, but between the two countries.
Sometimes Trump plays with the numbers, but damn, 7,000 soldiers a week, and he doesn't give a fuck. My God, and he wants to continue the war, losing 7,000 soldiers a week. And never mind the fact that he's going to bring Russia into the cave days they're going to go broke. And all the infrastructures in Russia is going to go down to dust.
It's mostly soldiers, by the way. Sometimes, in Kiev, they'll lob a missile in or some drones in, kill some people. But mostly it's soldiers. Russia and Ukraine are losing 7,000 souls. And, they're not American. They're not us. They're not you. We have a special obligation. But they're soldiers. They're young people. They leave their parents. They wave goodbye. And then 2 days later, they're blown.
Now, one of the reasons Russia's gains are slowing down is because they're kinda having a recruiting crisis. Who would have guessed?
Okay, so he said 7,000 combined with Ukrainian soldiers.
The Russian youth doesn't want to sign up to be cannon fodder on the front lines. But this is where usually what Russia does is just raise the bonuses that they give out to anyone who wants to sign a new contract. But the problem here is Putin's bank balance is kinda getting low, and the Ukrainian drone strikes against Russian refinery has only made that situation worse. Well, guess what? The long-range missiles are about to destroy the whole oil industry. Now, this is where I kinda want to explain why missiles are such a big deal, because I'm sure some of you guys are wondering that every single day we see images and videos of Russian refineries on fire. So Ukraine is already hitting them, so why are missiles such a big deal? You see, so far Ukraine has been using drones with warheads that go into these refineries. They do damage, but it's not as much. A drone hitting a refinery is like throwing a pebble into car's radiator. The damage is real, but it can be repaired in weeks, maybe months. Now, of course, if Ukraine continues doing this for months on months, Russia is going to run into another issue, and that's the issue of equipment. You see, these refineries were built using equipment and parts from Western companies. Russia doesn't have access to those parts. So if Ukraine keeps on hitting the refineries over and over again, Russia is going to run out of parts to repair the refinery with, and that's a very big problem. But that will take time. But hitting a refinery with a missile is like taking a sledgehammer to car's engine. That's gonna take a very long time to repair. And another part is missile's radius. The impact radius of a missile is a lot bigger than a drone. That means in one strike, Ukraine can take out many important components of a refinery, which takes a lot longer to repair, or maybe sometimes they may just have to rebuild the whole refinery, which may take months, if not years.
And never mind the money that's going to cost to repair it.
And on top of that, if Ukraine keeps on hitting refineries with missiles, it sends a very clear message to Kremlin that this war has come home and there's nothing Putin can do about it. And talking about Putin doing something, this is the funniest part. Just yesterday, Russia introduced a new innovation to protect its refineries against Ukrainian drones. Let me show you the innovation and then I'll tell you guys what the joke is. Those cope cages may stop a drone, but they're not stopping a long-range missile. And it's so funny the timing, because literally yesterday is the first clip we ever saw of Russia using these techniques to protect the refineries, and the same night we have the announcement from the White House that, hey, we'll be helping Ukraine use missiles. Now, this is a big news. I know I've said that multiple times, but the report just dropped an hour ago and we know what's about to happen. Russia is about to step up the game of their informational warfare. The Russian propaganda machine is about to go full force. In fact, as I'm recording this on Wednesday night, Tucker Carlson is live right now with Jeffrey Sachs, predicting how this will lead us to World War III. This is the same Jeffrey Sachs who, by the way, predicted that Russia is never gonna invade Ukraine. He predicted that while Russian army was on Ukrainian borders, 100,000 Russian soldiers were waiting for instructions to go in, and he was saying Russia will never do something so stupid. Now the same guy is telling the world, hey, we don't want to fight with Russia. And let's not forget, Tucker Carlson, just a few months ago he said, if we strike Iran, it will lead to World War III. So be careful listening to all these people because they don't tell you the truth, they just push the narrative they're getting paid to push. And this is not about me just disagreeing with these people, because a good way to figure out if someone's just pushing a narrative or they're actually doing critical thinking is always just ask them a simple question. Can you say one thing bad about your side? Because everyone does something negative, but people who support Russia apparently always think that Russia hasn't done anything to be at fault. All these countries joining NATO, well, that's not Russia's fault at all. It's all NATO's fault because smaller nations want to so badly join NATO. It's not like Russia has been an aggressor for centuries and centuries. But anyway, I'm getting off topic again. But I do want to tackle an important point that I know Kremlin's gonna try pushing already, because they did the same thing last year back in November when President Biden approved long-range US strikes inside of Russian-controlled territory. This wasn't inside Russia, but Russian-occupied territories like Crimea, Donetsk, Luhansk, and all that. Well, you listen yourself what Putin said back then.
What we are seeing is an attempt to substitute notions. Because this is not a question of whether the Kiev regime is allowed or not allowed to strike targets on Russian territory. It is already carrying out strikes using unmanned aerial vehicles and other means. But using Western-made long-range precision weapons is a completely different story. The fact is that I have mentioned this, and any expert both in our country and in the West will confirm this. The Ukrainian army is not capable of using cutting-edge high-precision long-range systems supplied by the West. They cannot do that. These weapons are impossible to employ without intelligence data from satellites which Ukraine does not have. This can only be done using the European Union's satellites or US satellites, in general NATO satellites. This is the first point. The second point, perhaps the most important, the key point even, is that only NATO military personnel can assign flight missions to these missile systems. Ukrainian servicemen cannot do this. Therefore, it is not a question of allowing the Ukrainian regime to strike Russia with these weapons or not. It is about deciding whether NATO countries become directly involved in the military conflict or not. If this decision is made, it will mean nothing short of direct involvement. It will mean that NATO countries, the United States, and European countries are parties to the war in Ukraine. This will mean their direct involvement in the conflict, and it will clearly change the very essence, the very nature of the conflict dramatically. This will mean that NATO countries, the United States and European countries, are at war with Russia. And if this is the case, then bearing in mind the change in the essence of the conflict, we will make appropriate decisions in response to the threats that will be posed to us.
Remember this. Back in November, Putin was saying that if US approves these missile strikes inside Russian-controlled territory, that would mean US is at war with Russia. Western countries are with war at Russia. But nothing actually came out of it. This was just a pressure tactic to stop Ukrainian allies from helping Ukraine. And Putin knows this works because at the end of the day, we should have given Ukraine all it needed right at the beginning. But because of Russian rhetoric, we keep delaying the decision. And when we do make the decision finally, we realize that all this time Russia was just bluffing. And Russia will continue bluffing because it works. And the worst part of all this is the hypocrisy. Because while Putin is yelling that Western soldiers helping Ukraine manage the missiles would mean West is at war with Russia, Putin is having North Korean soldiers manage North Korean missiles that are going inside Ukraine and destroying Ukrainian churches, Ukrainian homes, and Ukrainian malls. We know this because Ukraine hit back at one of these missile centers and we saw North Koreans die. The same North Koreans that were shipped off to North Korea where Kim Jong-un was doing this propaganda TV segment where he was crying his crocodile tears out because North Koreans were killed in Ukraine. So be careful with any propaganda you see in the next few days how Russia is now at war with the United States because of what President Trump just approved. In reality, Putin never really wants peace. He wants Ukraine, and until we show him he cannot have that, he will keep going. Also, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below if you haven't already. We're trying to hit 2 million.
I'm going to end the video there. If you haven't, if you ask me, I don't think that information attack or information propaganda is going to do much on Putin. Because the way I see it, a lot of his allies are pulling back. Kim Jong is silent. He's been very silent. He's the only potential ally that Russia may have. And China, I think China is looking more out for peace. I don't think China is going, because China's very peaceful. I guess China wants peace. China is trying to avoid conflict because I believe Xi Jinping, based on what I've been seeing, he is very concerned and he does worry about the regards of citizens dying and casualties and stuff like that. So I don't see them just aggressively joining Russia. I don't see that happening. Maybe Iran and North Korea. Every other little country that I haven't heard of. Like I said, guys, let me know what's the truth to this. Let me know what you think. School me, my people from Ukraine. Let me know what's going down. Let me know what's happening. State your opinion. And of course, guys, subscribe to my channel. Hit the notification bell. Hit the like button. Any donations to my channel will be greatly appreciated. My PayPal account is on the description. Thank you very much for watching. Peace, love, and God bless.